Okay, and now, okay, let me refresh. Oh yes, it just worked. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So what's happening? It stopped again. Oh, it's a bit slow, right? So what's gonna happen if we go live streaming? What would be the case? I was thinking. Okay. Okay. So when I'm here, I still have to keep it uh paused, right? Otherwise, we'll get the echo. Okay, right. And the same. Okay, so let me create a new one, and then I'll put the link on what is it? Oh, you know, on no. Okay, let me get out from this, right? Okay. Hello. Hi, Paul. Hi.
Hello, 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 hello.
Oh, yes, I can hear you.
Yes,
So
so there's no more echoes, right?
yes, there is no more echo. So the
Nice.
thing is that I'll be looking at this over here instead of, okay, I got it. The screen, actually I should be looking at, what is it? It's called StreamYard. I shouldn't be looking at the screen of YouTube.
Yes, don't look at YouTube.
And then I can, but of course I can also look at this chatting. So is there any way to not make it private? So go live now. I have
You,
to okay,
there
because you
probably
can,
should be an option on your dashboard to change the mode.
you mean this StreamYard, right?
Yes, there should be an option on your dashboard right now.
Let me see. Message remove poll, edit name, stop. The settings. I do have settings though. General rotation. But I think it's okay. I can just start a new one. After all, this is totally free. Uh, I'm trying to look for a delete rename brand. Where is it? No, Live Studio. No, no, no. Stay. Live streaming. Okay. Google Meet. No, it's not going to work. Stop cam mute present. What is this? Slides share screen. Share screen with who? No? No, I don't really see anything there. Rename the brand name. Okay. Oh, you are there. Live stream, live stream. Nope, I don't see any actually buttons. Private chat with everyone. Comment, banners, brand. Hi, Paul, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
I
so I
can't
think,
see your dashboard. I can just see the stream. That is.
yeah, I know. So one thing I could do. Okay, let me send you this thing. Oh, sorry, not this one. I sent you a Google Meet link actually. Maybe you can find the button. I looked at it. It's not anywhere.
All right, let me check.
Or should I change it from somewhere else? And okay, is it? Oh, I think I found it. Okay. Where is it? Okay. Hi, Paul. I think I found it.
Oh, all right.
I think it's from here. It's from there. Did you see?
I can't. I can actually see. Yeah. All right. I can see. Yeah. So you probably can change it from there.
Yes, I can change it from here. Well, if I okay, so what is it? Should I leave Google Meet? Actually, I
Probably.
okay, but here I haven't seen any of this.
Try settings and let's see. Guests, layouts, hotkeys.
No, these are different things. Cameras, nothing else. Done. So
How about a general? This is
yeah,
general,
I'm here
right?
in general. Yeah, so it doesn't work
Yeah.
like this. So this is most probably from here actually.
Let me Google it quickly. Can I change stream visibility? Oh, it's saying that you can change it from your actual YouTube page, and that should make it
I think
change.
that should be it, right?
Yeah, so yeah, that's it.
Okay, right. Okay, so let me close then Google Meet.
Yes.
Okay.
So that should go public right about now.
Yeah, okay, so let me click on this. I didn't click on it yet. Now I'm clicking on it. And yes, it should be live now. Are we
Yes, you're
live?
live. I can see it.
Okay, then I do believe people should be here. Let's see. Hi, boys. Hi there. We are live stream. Okay. I got. Let me see. Okay, there are people.
That is quick.
Okay, there's someone called Faizen. Hi, Faizen. How are you doing? And we do have. Oh, we can see this. Can you see the chatting?
Yes, on the StreamYard, I can.
Yes, right. Hi, Faizen. How are you doing? Okay. Well, I don't know how many people are there right now. Oh, Professor.
Mastermind.
Hi, Professor Mastermind. How are you doing? Hi, Faizen. Yeah,
India.
India. Good to see
Jai
you.
Hind.
We are brothers and a lot of people. So we do have Rudy Hartano. Is there any Flutter project with Laravel backend from Udemy? Yes, we do have. And well, actually, a lot of them in our official website. You can find it, thebesttech.com. But since this is a live stream, I don't think I'm going to actually talk on that. So mostly would be talking on Flutter and clean architecture. Hi Diana, we are from Shanghai, and Paul, you are from
Ghana. I'm currently
Ghana.
in Ghana.
So Ghana
Yes.
and Shanghai. So
Yes.
intercontinental live streaming. And hi Mahmoud, We are from Shanghai and Ghana, right?
Yes.
Mahmoud, assalamu alaikum. Hope you're doing good. Okay, so we are pumped up about talking about clean architecture and Flutter and clean architecture related stuff. So, if we have questions, so just leave your questions, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. Okay, I've ever heard people talk like Django. So, Paul, you want to talk on that?
Yes, I think the thing about Django is like mostly in the Flutter community, what we mostly focus on is because most Flutter developers or most of the people who came into Flutter or who started out with Flutter when it was fresh out around 2017, I think, were mostly web developers because Flutter was actually built by web developers. So it was kind of like a migration by web developers to create a mobile framework. So most web developers are more in touch with JavaScript. So we had more popular JavaScript backends, but Django is more Pythony. So, and I actually have worked with a Django backend on with Flutter as the front end,
All right.
but
Okay.
you don't see a lot of tutorials on them. So yeah, so I think it's mostly because of Flutter's web background. I think so.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Paul. And Pankaz Parihar said, yes, we'll have actually, we are working on new projects, Flutter project, Flutter riverpod e-commerce based in clean architecture. We are working on that. Okay, what is clean architecture exactly? Okay, this is a very good question. So here we go. Paul is our clean architecture expert, so he would be able to answer this question. So remember, guys, we would be only taking questions on clean architecture and related questions in Flutter. So Paul, so what is clean architecture in your mind?
Right. So clean architecture is actually more, like he said, is a structure or how to create an application. It's a combination of all of them. It's a combination of the folder structure. It tells you how to arrange your folders. So that actually gives you that common folder structure so that if you know clean architecture and I know clean architecture, you can easily look at my code and know where everything will be without having to search for it. You'd know what folder to go to. So in that case, yes, folder structure really comes into play. Then it's also about creating your application because it gives this I don't know if you lot have heard about Solid and the first clean architecture video that released. I actually spoke a lot on it and the principles of Solid, but we don't have much time. But it's all of these coding principles that actually makes your code a lot easier. Test-driven development. It makes it possible to test your classes. So it's a lot more than folder structure. It's also about coding practices. It's about how everything works together. It's about loose coupling, loose making your codes to be easily switchable, so you can switch out certain parts of your code without breaking the entire structure. So it's very deep. So you can go ahead and Google about Uncle Bob. He actually came up with clean architecture. So you Google Uncle Bob and you can read his book on clean architecture, and that is where we've created the abstraction that we have for Flutter's current clean architecture community.
All right, thank you, Paul. That was a very nice answer. And one of our friend Fizan has actually asked twice. So should I learn? What should I learn for backend? Is it Firebase or something else? So do you have to say anything on that?
Yes. Actually, people ask me that question a lot, and the
Okay.
answer that I have is there's no correct backend to learn. Different backends for different things. So Firebase could be good. Personally, I think Firebase is very good for personal projects. All of my personal projects, Firebase. Easy integration, very quick. Also, if you have features like live streaming and the rest of them, Firebase is very good. But then in the bigger scope, people usually say that Firebase is not very scalable in production, which I personally have never had an issue with. But this is the community's um, point of view. So in such cases, if you're working with, say, code base that doesn't really need live communication with your server, so like a socket live stream thingy, then you probably should go for other options than Firebase, because those options are better tested than Firebase. So you want something that's well tested and is very scalable. So in that case, you start looking at things like MongoDB and the rest of them. Now, even when you get to that point, you still have other options to look at. You have things to consider, which would be also maybe things like the type of searches you want to do on your database. So, for example, we're currently working on releasing a tutorial for an e-commerce site. Using MongoDB is good, but then what about when your users want to do a text search or an elastic search or a vector search? You want to, in actual production ready apps, they use these things to collect information about what this particular user usually looks at, and then they create a profile for you, and then they can vector search and return these data on your dashboard later for featured products or products you might like. So in such cases, if you have such things, certain databases do not let you do vector searches or elastic text searches. Recently, MongoDB has started it. They literally just started it in November. So with MongoDB now, you can do vector searches. So MongoDB has been added to the list of options that you have if you wanted to do a vector search. So I don't know if you catch my drift. So it depends on different scenarios. What do you need? You look at your project needs and then you decide. You search for databases that are scalable and also meet those needs that you have. That's how it works.
Okay, thank you, Paul. But now, regarding the scalability, I don't really agree with the community when they say that it's not scalable, because there's something from Google, so I'm not sure why it won't be scalable. But there are particular features we might not use because we might have a different team setup or the way we think in terms of budget. But I think in terms of scalability, Google's APIs are one of the best. So definitely they are scalable. But only one thing, one can say that yes, once you use Firebase, you don't have much control on your data the way you want, and third party like Google, they get to see your data. But I think scalability and stability is still there, right?
Yes, yes. So this is what I'm saying. Personally, I think the community is wrong. This is my personal opinion before they attack me. But then the community still thinks what they think. They think it's not scalable. So yeah, it's up to them really.
Yes, right. Okay. All right. So, Valorant, you said you really appreciate our homework. Well, thank you. I believe you want to say you appreciate our work. All right. Okay. So, guys, are there any other questions related to clean architecture, GetX and clean architecture, riverpod and clean architecture, block and clean architecture? So,
Provider,
yeah,
anything.
or and provider. Okay, so let's come at us and ask questions. And this is a free session, so anyone can ask anything. All right, so it looks like folks are not there. 13 people are watching live, but we should be aiming at. Let me read some others. So that was from Professor Mastermind, who asked us what is clean architecture. Is it pre-planning or structure? How to create? I think we already answered that question.
Yes.
Okay, right. Okay, there are people coming and going. Now I see that 16 people. But feel free to ask us any questions. Okay, I do not understand it. Let me ask more questions. Okay, there's another question from Islam Apu. Oh, okay, she retracted the question. Okay, so hi, can you explain folder structure? Okay, well, that's a good question. So I believe you asked us folder structure of clean architecture. Okay, I think we could do a little bit of what is that? Brief introduction about folder structure, right, Paul?
All right. Let me
Okay.
see if I got an Android Studio open and present my screen. Right. So give me a
So are you able
second.
to?
Let me get.
Okay, sure. So let us present the screen so that actually you get to see in live what is called clean architecture folder structure. And NVM has asked, I hope you cover Flutter engine warm up. And as I didn't find any tutorial, that's a good suggestion. NVM, we'll keep in mind. And then Diana has asked us a question: can MongoDB be connected to Flutter project directly? Now, as Paul is preparing, so Diana, let me ask you, let me tell you. Now, MongoDB is like a database. Okay, so in general, you don't connect a database directly to front end framework. It has to come through a back end framework, and this also requires some security measures. So that's why I would say that no, don't try to connect MongoDB directly with Flutter project, and I'm not sure that it's even doable. Okay, so in general there is always a third party. The third party could be your any kind of framework like say Node.js Express framework or Laravel framework or say Django framework. Okay, so of course just like MySQL, you'll not directly connect it, right? So don't do that directly. And then over
Yeah,
here Marco
it's
Tarico
actually
has,
possible though
it's
with
possible. Okay,
MongoDB direct connection, but then it's
really?
not advisable, like you said.
Yes, right. Okay,
Yes, it's
right.
possible. I think on Popular Dev there's Mongo Dart, a package that lets you do that.
Mongo Dart package. All right, so we'll look into that. Okay, then
Yes.
Marco Tarico has asked, is a clean architecture way to develop with GetX and riverpod states together? Oh, that's interesting question, Paul.
What did he say? Screen
Well, he
architecture.
says that is a
With,
clean architecture way to develop with GetX and riverpod states together.
yes. See, the thing with clean architecture is that it brings in this layer called the interface adapter, which essentially connects your presentation to the domain or to the data layer. So this is usually what we use bloc for. If you've watched our clean architecture tutorial, this is what we use bloc for. And then we have a separate thing called state management. So the interface adapter is quite different than state management. With interface adapters, you're essentially trying to connect different layers together. This is why we have use cases in the block. But then with state management, you're trying to directly control or save or store state of your Flutter application. So in that case, you could connect them. You could have getX for state management and have riverpod for your interface adapter. I will explain this better in the upcoming course with clean architecture. So, but that is basically, you can try and read more. You could just Google it quickly, interface adapters, clean architecture, and see exactly how they work or what exactly they do. And then you already know what state management is all about.
All right, thank you, Paul. So it is doable, as Paul said. Now, everyone, please, I sent a link, and you can also sign up for our live session classes. We hold it once a month, and only 20 people are allowed. So I shared the link. Go ahead and check that, and you may sign up for that class ahead. Now we'll take the next question from Istamapu. She has asked us
I
that clean architecture
actually
plus.
have my screen up
Okay, your
so that we
screen
can
has up.
answer the other lady. Yes.
Yeah, so
So
she
my
asked
I don't
us
know if
that.
it's visible though.
No, I'm not able to see your screen yet, but the question is clean architecture plus block versus clean architecture plus riverpod. Personally, which one do you recommend for Flutter developer and who are trying to shift in the architecture? So, well, okay, Paul, go ahead, and then I'll also give my answer. I think we might have different answers or same, but it's okay. Go ahead.
I don't quite get what she means by he or she means by who are you trying to shift in the architecture?
So, yes, I don't get that either. So let's stick with the
All
first
right.
part.
All right. So personally, I would go with block and clean architecture because the first reason would be biased because of my personal opinions, because I prefer block over riverpod. So this is personal. But then on a more technical level, I would also still go for block because of certain things, the way that it lets me write logic, and it also lets me follow clean architecture principles. It lets me do what I already know how to do, which is write code as a Flutter developer. Whereas Riverpod brings in its own API, brings in its own little bubble, its own world. So the moment you add Riverpod to your project, you're essentially accepting a new world. And in that world, it's like there's no rules. You have to set your own rules and do your own thing. So now you're restricting yourself. It's like moving from a strongly typed language like Dart and moving over to Python where there's no rules. You can swap variable values with different types, and you can even declare variables without giving a type. So it's more or less free world versus rule world. But then where there's strict rules, you have less room for errors and you have more control over your environment. But with riverpod, it's what I've noticed is you actually have to create your own rules and then live by them, which is what we do in the upcoming tutorial as well. So yeah, this is my personal opinion about it.
All right, thank you, Paul. So, as Paul said,
Right.
that actually riverpod, when you do riverpod, actually you're doing riverpod, not really something in terms of clean code programming. Riverpod is great, and it actually made a lot of the features easy. Like one of the things it made easy, like provider to provider communication, which I would say that way easier than block. But once again, when we do riverpod, we are not doing really Flutter. That's a riverpod thing, more like. But when you do block, you're more like doing Flutter, block, and clean architecture more often. So it comes with a trade-off. So it's not that always, how to say, uh, I mean, the way we want. Okay, so some things that makes it too easy, like getx makes everything too easy, but there are people, they say, okay, because it makes things too easy, we don't like it. So riverpod has this tendency as well. It makes things a lot of easy, but it may end up as anti-pattern sometimes, but it's a great package. Okay, so we have a next question where it says that when you will release our getx clean architecture project. Hi. I guess you say your name is Hi. I believe. Yes, we are working on it. Our next project would be kind of GetX clean architecture. So definitely we are working on it step by step. But once again, because the project we work on, these are not really those dummy to-do apps like many people do that. I know. So our projects are production-ready projects. So the projects, the courses that you follow, you a lot of time end up getting a job when you write those projects on your CV. So we carefully design the projects and then record the tutorial. So it takes a bit of time, but we are going ahead with fast speed. So hopefully it would be ready very soon. All right. And then we do have another question from oh yeah, Root. You said you are my hero. So thank you. Actually, you have two heroes over here, me one and Paul the other one. Most probably I would say that. And Karen Kata has asked us, as per clean architecture, how do we parse JSON with minimum code? And is it necessary to keep both entities and models inside data and domain layer respectively? Okay, I think that's a very good question, right, Paul? Hi, Paul. Are you there? Hello.
Yes, hello. Hello, can
Yeah.
you hear
Did
me?
you see the question?
Yes.
Did you see the question?
Yes. So I
Okay.
think by passing JSON, they mean the model serializations and all that. So by that, you could actually go for code generators. I see someone, Miku, asked about the freeze class. You could totally look into the freeze package. That actually gives you the ability to serialize and deserialize JSON without writing too much code. But then the problem with it for me personally is that it takes away control for me. So I'm a code freak, if you call me that, because I like to write more code because it gives me more control. So I prefer to have more control than to have less control. So I really shy away from generators and all that because I feel like it's taking away all of my control. Like, why can't I edit my copy with or make it look this way or that way? Right? Why can't I do that? So I usually tend to shy away from them. But that is a way that you could do that. So if you're into that kind of thing, making it minimal code, then sure, look into freeze class or there's even I don't know, other classes that can help you with that. Now, to your next question about if it's necessary to keep both entities and models inside data, yes, it's necessary because I mean it's not too necessary in the sense of it. You could totally do away with that, just have one, but in the sense of clean architecture, yes, it's necessary. In the sense of loose coupling, where you could test one class and have one interface to reference later on. So that way you can have multiple so say for example, we have a user, for example. So if you had only a user model without any entities, you would have a problem where you would have only a user model when you want to use, say, maybe a customer model. you would inherit the actual user model, but then a customer model might still be a user model, but it's, I don't know if you get what I'm saying. It will be a different thing altogether. So when you're trying to use a user model, you can't make a user model the same as a customer model. But if you had an entity, the customer model could inherit from the user entity. So when you say that you want a user, you can still give a customer model. You can still do that with a user model, but then now you have a messed up code that you can't really swap out easily. You can't change certain things easily. I've gone through that problem before with very huge projects where I just had models and inheriting each other. I had customers, I had contractors, and all that. And later on, when I had to remove certain values or remove certain properties from certain users, I had an issue because now all users were tied together, and it was very difficult to do that. But when you have that loose coupling with your entities and your models, then essentially you have an easier thing to deal with where everything isn't the same and you can easily loosen them up. So
All
I
right,
hope that
thank you.
answers your question. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's essentially actually we should have both entities and models, right? And I think this is one of the thing we have covered before in our TDD clean architecture with the Firebase project. So where we had actually entities and models are in different layers.
Yes.
Yeah, so that helps us with more loose coupling. And so first is better to we build our what is that? We build our entities and then we go for models.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So it's extending step by step.
Yeah, so also that also helps us with that principle where we have to make sure that we have a domain that isn't really related to anything else. So if we it's purely Dart essentially. So if we wanted to delete the data layer and the presentation layer, we can do that, and the domain layer should have no errors. So if you take away that entity, then you essentially lose your domain, that abstraction that you have where your domain is totally Dart, pure Dart. So because when you look
Okay.
at the models
Mm.
have two JSONs that could use other things. You could have a freeze generated class. Now that is going away from Dart and is becoming more fluttery. So you want to have something that's purely Dart that holds the core. So the core of your feature should be purely Dart. That is the reason why we do all of that domain thing. So that way we have something that's pure Dart and then we build from there. So you want that Dart foundation before you build a Flutter. So that's it.
All right, thank you. Yeah. So once again, if you guys don't get it clearly, but we do have a tutorial where Paul has explained actually this thing, why you need entities and models separately. So I'm gonna leave the link below so you can explore that. So it's covered there in the tutorial. It's on YouTube, so you can just go ahead and get it for free and watch it because he had actually explained very clearly. Now over here, Ayush Mishra has asked us a question: project with the Dart Frog. Now, okay, so Paul, from your experience, where is Dart Frog now? How mature is it?
I personally, I don't have an opinion on it because I haven't used it as extensively, just for a very simple project. So I don't. The problem with these things is that they could be good, but then when you start using them, then you start seeing when you start having more advanced use cases. Say, for example, for building a simple to-do app, you all you have to do is to store just simple CRUD operations, really, for storing and releasing and reading data, maybe updating and deleting data as well. But then what about, say, an e-commerce application where you have cron jobs, where you have, say, middlewares, and you want to do all of those? How does Dartfrog actually hold up to that? Can you do all of those advanced things using Dartfrog? So these are the things that you can look at before we can actually use Dartfrog. And I haven't personally explored those, so I will look into that. Probably get back to you guys on that later.
All right, thank you, Paul. So yes, that's true though. Like for a full-fledged application, I don't think Dart Frog is ready there because I'm not sure that whether they're an actual live full-fledged app that is up and running as backend using Dart Frog because a backend could be very complex sometimes. Okay, for
Yes.
dummy apps, Dart Frog is okay to go, but when you want to put it in production where there are thousands of users, we don't know the scalability as well as stability of this thing. So it's worth exploring and keep learning and improving on that. Now Sharon Kata has asked another question. So I am using clean architecture but with micro front end service packages. I'm not sure how to communicate or navigate between packages from master or super app, and I'm using block as a state management. So, Paulo, do you have a take in this?
I think I don't think I don't really know what he's talking about, but what I think he's talking about is where we have, say, for example, two or three different apps where we have the admin dashboard. For example, we have with Ecomly, the upcoming
Right.
tutorial. We have an admin app, and then we have the client app. So,
Yes.
but then we want to share features between them. So then having to communicate with the block that lives in the client app with the block that lives in the admin app. Maybe they share
Yes.
similar features, so you want to use the same thing. So I think that's what he's talking about. In that
Yeah.
case, what I personally do is I create a middle package, actually a middle Flutter package, and then I move every common feature, every common block into the common package. So maybe if it's ecomly client, ecomly admin, I
Yeah.
have maybe ecomly common where I have a block in there, and then after writing the block and defining everything, exposing the APIs of the block or the methods from the block, I go ahead and then write the export library where I export all of the states, all of the events, and then that is it, I think. So just adding a state, adding an event and listening for states in your different applications. When you call that common package and you listen for those events and those states that you've exposed, it should work internally that way. So that way it works. I don't know, you can try that, it works. I've tried it and it works. At first, I actually thought maybe the blocks would not know each other, but they actually do and they actually work perfectly. So you can try that. Create a separate package for sharing common features, and then you can listen to them between each other. That's how it works.
Okay, right. Thank you, Paul. But what if these two admin panels are on different servers and the only way to connect them, even before we listen, it has to go through accessing the same database or somehow using socket and connecting them. So isn't the block a little bit higher level for this? I mean,
Yeah, so
here's
in
my
that case, I
question.
personally wouldn't use block. In that case, I personally wouldn't use block, to be honest, because block is I
It's
personally
local
only
shared
use it.
memory.
Yes, exactly. So I only use it for things like interface adapters and that. I don't use it for state management, right? So, but for state
Yeah.
management, I would want it to be a lot simpler. So, well, you have, like you said, something like a socket. You'd have to listen to a stream. So for that, you'd probably have to create a stream subscription in your block, which is reinventing the wheel. The socket is already a stream. You can literally just do that straight up in your app. So for that, I will prefer to simplify it by using maybe provider or something. Yeah, I think provider is the simplest way to do that, really. And then I'd use a provider over a block, and then just create the socket in the provider and expose the provider from the common package and listen to it in both the client and the admin app sides. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And I hope Sharon Kata, it should be clear. But now, once again, if your apps are in different memories, so I don't think block would communicate because the block statement as a state management is only for one shared memory. Okay. So if you have two apps, block, I don't think has to do much with that. It depends on either, listening to stream or different kind of stream like a WebSocket or like, somehow a database, things like that, and then pushing from there to front end, like even like the cron job we have, right? That's also kind of listening to different, like our my app is in one side front end, and the admin is in another place, but they're communicating like using kind of things called cron job as well as the backend database. But anyway, so here he does have all the packages integrated into a master application. Okay, in that case, the communication should be easier. Yes, Karan Kata. I do believe that if your packages are all inside a master application, then I think it's still possible to do, like as Paul explained earlier. So take all the features, common features together, and make a package, isn't it, Paul?
Yes. Make a Flutter package.
Okay, right.
You can upload that package to GitHub and then use that GitHub link to actually import that package in your prospect YAML in both client apps. Or you could make a local package, which will be very difficult because what if a different person in your team is working on it and they don't have it loaded on their computer? So in that case, I usually upload the common package or the master package, the master application to GitHub and then share the link. So anyone who's working in your team can just import it prospect.yaml git URL, and then they add the URL, and it simply fetches that package for them.
All right, thank you, Paul. Notify has asked, is still working on my deploying first Flutter app to App Store. Can't wait to join this clean architecture class. Sounds interesting. All right, Notify, thank you. But we already have up and running clean architecture course on Udemy, and most of it is also free on YouTube. So you may want to check that out. So this is the link here for Notify. Thank you. And then over here, Irvin Buddha has asked us a question. It's not a question though. Thank you. I made a swift migration from Unity to Flutter. Thank you for your clean tutorials, good coding structure. Thank you, Buddha, and thanks for appreciating. All right, and Rafael here. How to manage more efficient Firestore listener? Okay, Paul.
In the context of clean architecture, I think using Firestore listeners become more verbose. If you've taken our education app TDD course, you probably would have seen how we did it. We actually had to create um, streams over and over and over, and then transform those streams across the different layers. Now, what I personally would do would be just maybe create a helper, because it's more or less like the moment you start using the Firestore SDK, these things have been tested already, and SDK assumes that the software has already been tested in the SDK when they were writing it. So you probably don't have to go through all those layers because it's probably already has its own architecture in the code base. So in my honest opinion, you probably just want to create maybe a helper class and just have your stream there and then listen to the stream directly in your Flutter application. So that way it's more efficient. So that is, I don't know in what context he's asking about the efficiency of the Firestore listeners, but this is the context I think you're talking about in clean architecture. So this is what I've just explained.
All right, thank you. Now, Ayush Mishra once again asks us a question on Google Play new policy. Well, okay, so the policy might have changed recently. I don't know much about it because last year when we submitted, beginning of last year, so we didn't require anything like that, I believe. So I cannot talk much on that because since then I haven't published anything on Google App Store. I'm not sure about Paul though. So like testing with 20 testers before publishing.
That hasn't been. I don't think that's a problem yet for old accounts. I have a Google Player account, and I have been uploading apps even after the policy was implemented. So I think it's more for new accounts. But I do think they're going to bring it to us sooner or later, because yeah, I think it's because of it's because of how free the Google Play Store is, and people can upload viruses. You can literally upload. I'm telling you, you can upload anything at all. During my first few years on Google Play Store, I was literally just uploading empty applications, and Google was doing nothing about it, right? So, but with the Apple Play Store, you can see they have strict policies which come with both pros and cons. The pros are that the apps are more secure. There's less opportunities to have an exploit uploaded on there. But then the only cons that I know of is that it scares developers off. So there's fewer apps available for the Apple Play Store, and iOS users have very few options when they're trying to have fun or something. So you can see there's less games available for the iOS store and all that. So these things scare developers off. But then it also is a good thing because just any random developer cannot just come up and upload anything. So before you upload something, you're already paying $100 every year to keep your account open. That alone is more like sieving out all of the weak developers. And then finally, the very strict review processes will sieve out the remaining weak developers as well. So yeah, I think that's what Google is also trying to get into now, because there's been more reports of exploits being uploaded to the Google Play Store, and that's very bad for Google.
All right, thank you, Paul. Now, over here, Malcolm Green asked us a question: what do they really mean by clean architecture? I never understand it. So, let me give this answer very quickly and very briefly and easily. So, clean architecture here, when they say clean architecture, it means that separate modules where they should belong to. For example, if we do Flutter app, now Flutter app actually Flutter itself full of widgets, right? So of course widgets are made of dart code, but this is, I wouldn't say this like pure dart thing. Okay, I mean, when you write dart code or dart language, there is nothing called widget, right? So when we do clean architecture, the widgets or the UI, we call them presentation or presentation layer. So all the widgets and view are in the presentation layer. So a lot of the other pure dart code where you don't really write like a widget or like say Firebase stuff, sorry, not like different kind of widgets like container sized box, so you don't keep them in like with dart code together, you separate them. Not only that, you also separate each of the features of your app differently in different layers. Okay, one of the common layer is something called domain layer. Okay, so in domain layer you want to have your app features written pure in dart code, and this also like a contract. So this contract actually defines what it should do and where it should reach out and who should reach out to it. Okay. I think Rahim Tech, are you trying to spam because you are saying say my name? So I'm going to ban you. He's a spammer. Sorry. So the thing is that you separate your presentation layer, you separate your domain layer, and then you also separate your data source layer. Data source layer mean like from your application you connect to outside world or data storage. It could be local data storage or any kind of database. So each of this code, the way they work, we separate them clearly so that you can extend or scale your app easily. For example, if you write an app using GetX clean architecture, GetX is state management, and one day you think you want to try this with block, then what do you have to do? You just change the getx part and rest of the code stays the same. Okay, like domain layer or data layer which reaches out to the external world, it doesn't change at all. Domain layer, which is pure dart code, it also doesn't change. Only your UI, even in the whole UI doesn't change, only the app folder or state management folder changes. So that's as simple as that. So I would simply say that, so separating different like your app features as well as dart code and flutter code and what they do, separating them is called clean architecture. So here Malcolm Grown has asked a question: is it something like MVC in the web? Yes, I think, right, Paul?
Yes, it is.
So like on our Node.js app, the one that we are doing with ecomly.
Yes, it's done with MVC.
Okay. So yes, in our web we do have MVC, model view controller. So this is a very common architecture actually, and it's used everywhere, even in mobile front end application. We have MVC, which is uh, also a common pattern. The only problem with MVC is that it's tightly coupled. It's
Yes.
not loosely coupled, so not that scalable, and you ended up having your presentation layer like UI and controller, or a lot of time the models, everything in one place. It's going to messed up, so you want to separate that. So gaming plaza, sir, I want to learn Flutter backend. uh, well, okay, there is nothing really called Flutter backend. Backend is totally different technology, so there is nothing called Flutter backend. Backend could be written in Laravel. So in general, backend refers to REST API and the related admin panel where the super admin they do their work. So it has not much to do with Flutter, because the only thing Flutter cares about getting the JSON data from server and processing it, Now, in general, it comes from backend. Backend could be in Django, Laravel, Express, or C Sharp framework, or any framework. So it has nothing to do much with Flutter itself. So the idea is Flutter backend is a wrong way of calling a technology. Hi, Malcolm. Thank you. Satish K. Hello, the best. Hello, Satish. And which state management is best, and which one did you recommend for Flutter developer? Okay, so Paul, you wanna have a go on that?
I would say it also depends on the project again. So if I'm creating a simple to-do app that has only one feature, it's just one feature, then I probably also it doesn't have to be that scalable. Then I don't need clean architecture because it will make me write a lot of lists for just something simple, something very simple. So for that, I would probably go for something simpler like MVC. But then when you have a huge project, that is when clean architecture starts to shine more. Like Dylan already said, when you feel like you wanted to swap out a state management solution, for example, or the interface adapter, you can easily swap it out with clean architecture. But with MVC, that would be very kind of more difficult than with clean architecture. So in the case of a single feature, swapping out say for example, the state management will be easy because it's just one feature. But in an e-commerce app, for example, you have tens of features. Swapping out the features will be a lot of heavy lifting. So it just depends. So when you have something very simple, don't overload yourself with work with clean architecture. Also, when it doesn't really need to be that scalable. But then when it's something like company code or startups or something like that, something that you expect will scale later in future, you definitely want clean architecture. I know people talk against this a lot, about clean architecture in the Flutter community, the very big people, and that is very shameful because this is something good, right? People frown upon writing a lot of code lately, but I don't think that's necessarily a good thing because the less code you write, the less control you have over things. As you can even see in today's coding world, where everything is more high level language, we have languages like Dart and the rest of them. We're no longer talking directly to lower level code. That has given us taken away the ability to do certain things or have controls over certain things. We no longer have direct control over memory, right? We have to depend on the language, on the higher level language to give us the best API to talk to the memory, and sometimes they actually don't meet those standards. So I think um, having that less code has both pros and cons. So you just have to know what you want exactly, and then go for that. Essentially, yeah,
All right, thank you, Paul.
sure.
And Shatish asking, is it possible to create a Flutter application without state management package? Yes, it's entirely possible. Definitely, it's possible. But as your app grows bigger and larger, managing the native state management would be cumbersome and tiresome, and there would be a lot of code, spaghetti code, I would believe as well. So it's not that recommended. You would need somehow a state management, either not as a state management or at least as interface adapter, like Paul explained early. So somehow you would need one. That's my opinion. I mean, if your app is big app, isn't it, Paul?
Yes, yes, you definitely. I actually was that person when I started out Flutter a few years ago. I actually used to say to myself, I don't even need state management. Set state can solve everything. Then I started moving seeing that it was very difficult to even move states across, even with drilling. So I started looking into things like value notifiers, where I could literally use value notifiers and do heavy prop drilling and drill the value notifier very down deep into the widget tree. But then I had to pass variables a lot. You will have to pass a lot of variables that you're not even going to use in this screen. So if you had screen A, B, C, and then you had a value notifier on screen A that you wanted to change on screen C, you'd have to pass it through screen B before it gets to screen C. But then on screen B, you're not even using it. So you see that you have that extra variable over there that you're not even using. You just have it there because you want to pass it down to C. So that creates a lot of boilerplate, a lot of verbosity, a lot of nasty code, and like Dylan already said, you start repeating yourself and having spaghetti code. So yeah, so in that case,
And
you
it's
start
very
using
error prone. You might
yes,
forget to
very
pass
error
a
prone.
variable and you don't know what you're passing. Okay, all right, thank you. The
Exactly.
next question, what about getx package? Can you use it as a state management? Yes, Ruffle, the primary purpose of getx package is state management, but you can also use it for routing. Definitely, it's also one of the best package for state management. So yeah, if you are already good at that, go ahead and use that. All right. So now Osama Abdullah has asked, what exactly is a business logic? So this is yours, Paul. What exactly is a business logic?
So the business logic is just the logic behind your application. It's just that the logic. So how your application communicates. So it differs actually. So in different scopes, it differs. So say for example, if you have an application, you have to in Flutter especially, if you have an offline application, say for example, to do app that doesn't need to store data to the server, an app that doesn't communicate to any servers or any backend services, then you have that type of application, and then you have a different application that actually communicates with the server. So in that case, we have two different types of business logics. So we have the business logic that handles your Flutter logic, how say this widget communicates with the other widget, how this widget alerts the other widget that something has changed. Then you have the other logic or the other business logic that defines how your application communicates to an API, to a server. So in that case, you have different types of business logic, but a logic is a logic. It's just how you do something, how your app achieves a certain thing. So if you want to log in, how do you want your app to log in? Do you want to collect email, password, and this, and maybe username, and then you log the user in with that? So that would be your logic. And then the logic will also include how you actually do it. Do you talk to a server? Do you persist the user? Do you do this? Do you do that? So all of those make up the business logic. So business logic is simply the process, the algorithm that you use for doing things in your application.
All right, thank you, Paul. And then over here, Emmanuel Gililot has asked a question. What is the difference between a dependency and deb dependency? So if you're talking about the packages, dependencies, your package dependencies, that of course, for example, if you use block, now that the block has to be in the app all the time as long as you use your package. Sorry, as long as you use your app. So that actually is your dependency, which is app dependency. Now you ask deb dependency. So these are the packages we refer, the one that we need during development time. For example, say Flutter, this linting package, which tells you the errors or some wiggly lines or some hints. So these things you only need during development. So those are the dev develop dependencies. And at the same time, like frigid package, that's also actually dev dependencies, because you just need them during development to structure your code and fast speed your code production. Apart from that, you don't need them. So those are the dev dependencies. And then over here, another question, I want to build a paid subscription app in my Flutter project. Can you explain the architecture? I never built a subscription mobile app, so I only did for web using Stripe. So in general, this subscription is more of a logical problem, but it could be realized in MVC or clean architecture as well. But clean architecture should be the best approach for this, because it looks like you are using subscription and a lot of business logic there. So in that sense, I would say that you'd better use a clean architecture. But the payment or subscription itself is a different logic. It not much to do with any kind of MVC or clean architecture pattern. Either way, it should be doable. Now, once again, it depends on a lot of logic, how the application is built, the business mind behind it, the business policy and model. So that's my understanding. Paul, do you have anything to say on that?
No, that is essentially it.
All right,
The
thank
only
you.
thing wait, I think I have something. It's about
Okay.
the policies because I ran
Yeah.
into this issue before.
Oh, okay,
So
right.
since it's a mobile application and you're going to be deploying it on both the Apple and the Google Play stores, you actually want to choose a very good payment gateway that communicates with the native APIs because they're very keen on that. Now, if your app is going to be a low key app that maybe a lot of people won't download, then you're safe with something like Stripe, creating subscriptions of Stripe. Because the thing with Stripe is that you actually have to go buy the Play stores, and you don't give them any percentages. Every money goes to you, right? But then when you actually go to the Play stores, you actually give them a commission, you give them some percentages. Now, when you go with Stripe for something like that, they actually get angry when they find out. But you could pass on the radar for some time. Don't tell them I told you this. But then if your application goes very large and with maybe millions of followers or millions of downloads, then they start looking into the things or how you're managing your payment. Now, what gateway would I recommend? So for that, I would actually recommend what is it? It's Revenue Cat. Yes, Revenue Cat is the only one I know that actually goes to the native APIs, and they actually, so that way Google gets their commissions. They make you set up payment intents on Google Play Store and on Apple Play Store. Then yeah, so they take care of all of that for you. So Revenue Cat, check it out. Don't use Stripe if your app is expected to go big. But if it's not going to go big, you can use Stripe and get through for some time till the app actually goes big. Yeah, so that
All
gateway
right.
should
Thank
work
you,
for you.
Paul.
Revenue Cat.
So the answer is revenue cat. Now, Alok has asked question: making screen take a lot of time. Sometimes it takes 2 hours to make one screen. How can I speed up this? Now, well, if you're not programming for a long time, even if you don't have a lot of, say, CSS or HTML experience, and you're directly coming to Flutter, definitely it would take a long time, because Flutter itself is a bit harder. At least the way it looks at the beginning, a little bit harder than React Native, as well as more harder than CSS or the old way of coding. Now, if you don't have much programming experience, it would take time. But as you practice more, it would get it'll take much shorter time. But the other thing, of course, how you also design your screen, and of course screen logic itself. So it's a lot about practicing. I mean, I don't know, is there any other way around this thing? Okay, it's a step-by-step process, and that's it. And you also ask, is there a way to develop a screen from Figma files? At least in Flutter, I don't know. There could be one for React Native. I have seen ads that there are some softwares that allow you to create React Native app from Figma. But for Flutter, no, I never heard.
You
What do you
can.
say,
You
Paul?
actually can. I've done it
I
before.
can.
With
Oh, wow, what
Figma,
is that?
yes. But then it's not good. It's not good. It
Yeah, of course,
actually gives you a lot of yeah, it gives you a lot of
this is not
unnecessary
programming, right? Now, this is not
budget
programming.
nesting.
This is
Yeah.
dragging and dropping. So you don't become a programmer. You might become a businessman at that, in that sense, but
Yes.
not a
Yes, it's not
programmer. So
very
these
good.
are different things. Yes, and you cannot also find a job using this. You can do freelancing maybe, but and not a job in a company, because people will not give you a job for dragging and dropping. So, well, you know which software does it? I mean, I know there is one for React Native, but I cannot call it directly. All right. Okay. Now here, overloading. Is there a way to make middleware in block? Oh, so, Paul, what do you say?
But I don't exactly know what it means by middleware in block.
Okay. So if you
So if
mean
you
that
can expand on
middleware,
that.
referring by, just diverting your screen based on different conditions, once again, it shouldn't be a block thing. Okay. It shouldn't be a block thing. It should be more like business logic thing rather than your block thing. Block is just state management, but now based on, because the way I understand middleware, it just tells you, so if there are certain condition is met, then you go and do certain thing. So block doesn't do that. Block just would, trigger event. That's all. Now, after, say, for example, user is not logged in, so instead of going to the dashboard, you want to go to the sign in page. So it's not the job of block. It's the logic. But during that logic, you can of course use block to emit or emit or trigger events, and then you have new state coming up. So yeah, based on state, of course, you show certain data on the screen or UI, but it's not a total block thing. It is, once again, architectural thing and logical approach rather than a block thing. So I wouldn't say that, but GetX does it. GetX has some built-in features, so you can just call their API, and then those API work as middleware. And because I have used that, GetX does have. Now, Block doesn't do that directly. So eventually you end up building your own middleware. Yes, in front end we do it, you can do it, but middleware is more like a back end thing. But yes, some programmers, they also do it in front end rather than pushing the whole logic to back end and wait for the response. So they do it twice, first in the front end and then in the back end. But once again, you need to build your own middleware, but Block would just stay there as state management, triggering events, and that's all. So I don't think Block would do direct middleware thing. And here, how much do you guys make per month? And in my country, intermediate level programmer about 200. Okay, so that's a very interesting question. It depends on a lot of things, and it depends on places. So direct answer, I think people could make up to $200 to $20,000, even more. So
I've seen people
uh
making more with Flutter. I actually
yeah.
know a lot of people around me who make a lot more with Flutter, like full dev salary, like hundreds of thousands a year in
Yeah, okay.
using Flutter alone. So yes, you can actually, but it depends. Like you said, it depends on your surroundings, your country, your um, niche, and all that. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So we are doing the last question because it's almost 1 hour. So I have only used the set state since 2019. I've never had time to learn block and riverpod. Am I outdated? It's not an outdated thing. I think it's rather than a preference thing. It's not being outdated. If you have been doing your job with the set state since then and you never had issues with this, you are genius and you are doing pretty good. But I'd still say that learn one block or riverpod, because eventually it makes your life easy. And once again, because in programming community, if you end up looking at others code, they might be using block, riverpod, or getx. So somehow you have to look at others code as well. So it's good to learn more because eventually it pays off. But if you're doing that thing without learning any of this, I mean, just using set state, you're awesome, bro. You're so cool. That's what I would say. Okay, so the last one. This is the last question we are taking, and then we are done. What is your thoughts of provider state management? This for Paul.
Provider is my personal favorite for state management for several reasons. It's very simple. It's easy to set up. You just need to create a simple class, and that is it. And then you inject it into your widget tree. Now, there's come on Riverpod and the rest of them on Block, but I still prefer Provider for this reason. I actually personally have this idea that the people who jump a lot in technology do not last long in it, because tech is a very fast, it's very quickly evolving, it's a very quickly evolving field. Today there might be this thing, tomorrow there's a new thing, and then you see people hyping it up in the community, and then you want to jump on it. Now when you jump on it, you haven't mastered state management corely yet, and you're jumping through different state management packages. Now you're just very good in all of them, but you're not a master in any of them. So what I think is you sit on one, you master it, and if it still works for you, you still keep on it. You don't have to jump. So if something's working for you, you still keep using. And this is also true in the lifestyle and in the life cycle of products, right? When products are developed, they go through a lot of maintenance, and at some point they get shelved. So there's no more, there's not much updates, just periodic, maybe updates to match them to the current, I don't know, to the current scenarios, to the current environments that they're currently in. So should also be the case for a developer. You shouldn't switch tools all the time. If you have a hammer and it always works for you, then what is the point of going to get something else that does the same thing and doesn't even do it in a better way? So unless there's a specific reason, maybe provider doesn't do this for you and you actually want that feature, and it doesn't offer it, then yes, you could go for something else. But if it's doing the same thing, then I don't think there's any point. So since I started out with provider and it's simple, still simple, simpler than everything else, then I prefer to use it a lot for state management. Right. So yeah, that's my reason for using it.
All right, thank you. And that was our last question today. Thank you, Mohammed. And hopefully, you guys had something valuable, and hopefully, we were able to deliver meaning and value. And I also put a link down there for a live class session. You guys can sign up. Go to the link and just check it out. And hopefully, I will see you guys once again next time. And thank you, Paul, and thank you, everyone.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
The Twitter account